All right, welcome in, welcome back. The Outsider Sports Football Podcast. Ben Mandel is with me. I'm Ryan Balliot. And if we're back, that means that football is back. We already had the Hall of Fame game. All the other preseason games are coming up. Training camp's been going on. Fantasy football drafts are being prepared for. Ben and I had a big trade in our Dynasty League earlier today. We're cheering each other on with that, making other people in our league kind of mad, but so what?
Hey, it's a win for both sides. It feels like all we know. I look one of the guys I sent you in our league, this dynasty league last year, Devonta Adams. He's coming home.
He's coming home, and a guy I'm getting back in return I love a lot. We'll talk about him later because we're starting our divisional breakdowns here today leading up to the season. So last year we did a show for the whole 8 weeks leading up. I said, I think we could break this up a little better. We're going to talk about two divisions a show now, one from the AFC, one from the NFC, the corresponding divisions. We're talking about the North divisions today, Ben. The AFC North, the NFC North. Two divisions. You said it right before we hopped on. The potential to be the two best divisions in the NFL. I think they already are. The AFC North had all four teams with a winning record last year, three of them into the playoffs. Over in the North, the Lions and Packers were both in. Vikings and Bears both with 7 wins, but a lot of optimism going on, especially in Chicago. So we'll talk about all that later on. We're going to start with the AFC North, though, real quick. The Bengals at 9-8 last year. Joe Burrow missed. I mean, he was limping into the season with a calf injury. Then another injury takes him out about halfway through, and they were just starting to he just was getting over the calf injury. They were gelling. Still 9 wins for the Bengals. This is a team that was planning themselves up at the top of the hierarchy, especially in the AFC, a crowded AFC up at the top, but felt like they were the second team behind Kansas City for a couple years. Injuries took over, so I think it says a lot. They still had a winning record technically. Projected win total this year 10.5. I'm big on Cincinnati. I think we're in for a big bounce back from them. It sounds weird saying, oh, worst to first for a team like Cincinnati when they really weren't bad last year, but spoiler alert, I have them winning this division, but we'll get the full predictions towards the end here. What do you make of Cincinnati with Burrow coming in healthy? I know Chase is doing a hold-in for a new contract. Higgins, probably his last year as well. But what do you make of Cincinnati right now?
Well, I think Cincinnati's a great football team, and yes, getting Joe Burrow back is huge for them. And honestly, knowing that you have a competent backup in Jake Browning is helpful because, like you said, they did end up finishing 9-8 still. This is a team that won some games you didn't think they were going to win without Burrow. You lose a guy like Joe Mixon, whose, production numbers, they were starting to go down in terms of yards per carry. You bring in Zach Moss, but you have the youngster going into his second year, Chase Brown, and you saw the way he was running towards the end of the year. Finally getting some snaps after really not touching the field the first 12 games of the year or so, maybe the first 10. This is a team that still has all the pieces on offense. You add Mike Gesicki in at tight end as well, so you have another good pass catcher for Joe Burrow to throw to. You lose Tyler Boyd, but Jermaine Burton, that young wide receiver coming in, as a Georgia fan, we saw him torch us a lot over at Alabama. Still a ton of talent on the offensive end. Somehow they've managed to keep Lou Anarumo as their defensive coordinator. He still has not gotten a head coaching job, so that's a win. You have that, carrying over from last year. It's a good football team in Cincinnati. The problem is you're playing in the best division in football in the AFC North. I mean, when you could have your entire division finish over 500, that's impressive.
Yeah, and that's again, I'm looking at this division list from last year, the standings and the projected win totals, and just to jump to Pittsburgh, we're going to talk about them next. They were 10-7. Their win total only at 7.5 right now. And if we've learned anything about Mike Tomlin, if he could take Kenny Pickett to 10 wins, certainly at least a winning record, this feels like an easy smash on the over at 7.5 right now.
Well, maybe it's the Arthur Smith effect.
Listen, Arthur Smith.
You really think they're going to throw the football still?
No.
No,
But
that's what I mean. So they're going to be the exact same offense that they were. And
I
now the handicap just comes from your offensive play caller.
but I think they're better equipped to find success running the football than Atlanta was.
No,
I think
ultimately, I do agree. I think at the end of the day, Arthur Smith got a head coaching job because he was a good offensive coordinator. He did have some success prior to getting the job in Atlanta. Pittsburgh, they hinge on what is going to be under center at quarterback. And
it's not going to be pretty.
see, I don't necessarily believe that completely. And you know that I've always been a big Russell Wilson guy. And, even last year and the year before, I was like, he's going to figure it out. He's going to figure it out. Well, I think Russ might have gotten into his own head and thought maybe he was a little bit better than he was and didn't have to put in the work. It looks like he's been doing more work. Apparently, he's gone back to boxing, which is what he was doing back in Seattle. Who knows? I don't know. It's not going to be as ugly as last year, but it's the whole situation of how this plays out is what is going to be ugly. Because if you're Justin Fields, do you really feel like anybody has confidence in you at this point if you don't win the starting job? And you are now on your second team as a high draft pick and a highly touted guy, but not able to start.
I think before I talk about Fields, Russell, I think 2 years in Denver will humble anybody. Especially we'll get to Denver next week about the AFC West, but oh man, do I have some strong opinions about them. But I think, Russell Wilson, I think is it's going to be a little bit of a resurgence. We saw it a little bit last year, right? Remember, they went into Buffalo and knocked off the Bills in a primetime game.
Yeah, but that was game manager Russell Wilson. That was Alex Smith-esque.
I think that's what Pittsburgh needs. You could argue Kenny Pickett wasn't even that.
No, but you can also argue that Russ had some of the best weapons he's had in his career in Denver, and he wasn't able to do anything with that.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that.
Look,
he's had the best.
I know your feelings on Jerry Jeudy, but here's the thing. He was still highly touted. He's still super talented. It wasn't Jerry Jeudy dropping the ball. He still couldn't find Courtland Sutton. I am a very big Courtland Sutton fan. He still couldn't get the ball to Courtland Sutton. I know I'm contradicting myself here because I said, I'm a big Russ guy, but there are certainly questions, I wouldn't say that, his year last year was better. That's because Sean Payton pretty much took the ball out of his hands.
I don't. Well,
he wasn't putting up Russell Wilson numbers.
I think for this year, Russell Wilson, whatever version he is now, is what the Steelers need. That's why they went and got him. Bringing in Fields when it was clear Chicago was bringing in Caleb Williams, they're moving on from Fields. I don't think if he doesn't become the starter this year, I'm not holding that against him. I feel like the plan is to let him sit and develop the way maybe he should have in Chicago.
It's not like Pittsburgh took Russell Wilson and paid him a bunch of money so he has to play. He's on a veteran minimum deal.
Yeah.
So I legitimately think, and I know that's the buzz around the Steelers, is it's Russell's job. They're having competition, but it's Russell's job, and that'll be that. I disagree. I think Mike Tomlin wants Fields to go out and win this job because ultimately that'll be what's best for the future of the organization is if Justin Fields is the better quarterback.
That absolutely, I agree with you. It'll be better for the future of the team, but I think better for the present, the immediate coming weeks for Pittsburgh will be Russell Wilson out there.
That's what I'm saying. If Justin Fields is able to go out and show this year that he's the better quarterback, that's better. That's still better now. But you do wonder about his psyche. He doesn't want to waste the first 3-4 years of his career sitting as a backup and not playing. Not everybody can do what Jordan Love just did.
I don't think it's going to be year. I think it's because you said it. Russell Wilson's on pretty much a 1-year vet minimum. So I feel like let Fields just get used to everything. Let him calm his mind. Don't put any more pressure on him to be the guy. Let him sit this year. If it really is that bad with Russell Wilson, then you turn to Fields during the season.
Yeah, let him return kicks.
But I honestly, with the new return rules, I'm sure we'll see something. You think Trey Lance will be out there for Dallas?
Trey Lance may have to start a couple games for Dallas this year.
That won't be good for anybody. But for Pittsburgh, my last point here is I think Russell Wilson, we could argue the weapons. This is the best defense he's had since his early Seattle days. It's a lot of pressure off of him to try and play hero ball when he does just need to be game manager. Russ is my point, because Kenny Pickett was just that bad. If we don't think much of current day Russell Wilson, at the end of the day, it's still, to me, a big upgrade over what they had. That's all I'm saying.
No, hey, look, you're not wrong. Here's my question for you, and this is a fun little Arthur Smith poke.
Oh, boy.
Do you think that Pittsburgh just switches to the wing T offense and runs Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, and Cordero Patterson as their running backs?
Listen, I just need Calvin Austin on the field. He's my boy on that team. Whatever gets Calvin on the field, you want to put him as a gadget player. I don't know what Cordero. I honestly forgot he was even there.
Well, I mean,
I knew he was there
brought him in
a couple years ago, a couple weeks ago. I was reminded he was there, and I forgot again. I don't know how much Patterson's going to factor in.
Yeah, and look, I think the other thing about the Steelers, we used to talk about how they had offensive weapons, they just need the quarterback. Well, their wide receivers this year, George Pickens, Van Jefferson, Roman Wilson, and then Calvin Austin, in that order, are listed on the depth chart. You're asking Roman Wilson to come in here and be a starter, and you're asking Van Jefferson to take on a bigger role than he ever has in his career. So those are question marks for Pittsburgh as well. It's not all on the quarterback. Yes, it's a big part, but, you're going to be asking a lot out of some unproven guys. I believe this is going to be a big breakout year, though, for Darnell Washington. I think he's going to get featured a bit more. They're going to do a lot of 2 tight end sets because of the wide receiver and running back situation and Arthur Smith. You saw how he liked to use Jonnu Smith instead of Kyle Pitts.
So if you're out there drafting Pat Freiermuth in fantasy, don't stop that. Go for Darnell Washington. Probably on the waiver wire week 1.
Oh, for sure.
But, yeah, you ran through that wide receiver room. If only there was an opportunity for the Steelers to go trade for a proven wide receiver, not happy with his current team. I just can't think of an example like that right now. I don't know if you can.
See, this is going to be a hot take, and I'm prepared to dish it out. I do not think Brandon Ayuk is a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. I don't think he's a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL.
I don't think that's a hot take.
I don't believe he should be getting paid the amount of money that he wants to be paid. And if I am any other team, there's zero chance I am giving up any draft capital to trade for him this year, any kind of capital at all, knowing that I would have to pay him $15 million this year. And on top of that, give him a huge raise and extension. It's just not happening.
That's sometimes the logistics that we as fans forget. It's not just cut and dry, trade for a player, you have them. You have to remember why he's requesting a trade.
There's zero chance the Niners tag him after this.
Yeah. I look at Hassan Reddick, too, with the Jets. He got traded because the Eagles didn't want to give him an extension. No, the Jets were like, yeah, we'll take him. And now he's holding out in New York.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't make any sense for you to go trade for a guy and give up a ton of assets to then pay him more money when you can go sign him for that much money next year. There are maybe 1 or 2 teams where a wide receiver is going to get you over the hump. And I'll tell you what, if I'm giving up to get that wide receiver, it certainly is not Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, fair. And I mean, you look at the quarterback market too. I mean, this is kind of the deal with modern day contracts. Top 5 that we view as talent, rarely does it line up to who's being paid in the top 5. That's just the nature of the business side of the NFL. Every new especially, I mean, I know we're talking about receiver here, and I mean, every day it's CeeDee Lamb waiting for his contract extension. It's just getting worse with
Well,
Dallas. But
see, but CeeDee Lamb is loving this because his rate is just going up.
it's going up, and he probably is top 5, if not just on the outside of it. That's a debate for another day. But yeah, Ayuk, I mean, this is the thing. Every new contract's going to be the record breaking. That's more true with the quarterback market, but you see it too with every position now. Every new one's going to be top 5, top 3, whatever, new highest paid. Another team rumored to be in the Brandon Ayuk trade market is the Cleveland Browns. They went 11-6 last year, projected win total of only 8.5 this year. We know the Nick Chubb devastating knee injury. He's already squatting 500 pounds. I mean, come on. That's insane.
Oh, man.
He'll be running full. He'll be back, I think, to his usual self by the end of the year, but it will take time. Jerome Ford will project to be the guy early on. If they add Ayuk, I mean, we talked about it in our dynasty trade talks. Amari Cooper could potentially be part of that move. The rumors are flying wild with the Ayuk stuff right now, so take everything with a grain of salt. I would think if Cleveland wants to add Ayuk, they would do so without giving up Cooper. But it stands. Their defense is still amazing. Was Stefanski coach of the year, right?
I believe so.
Last year? I mean, a quarterback carousel in the season. Watson, Joe Flacco was their quarterback at the end of the year. He's now backing up the guy. His jersey's kind of sticking out behind me, Anthony Richardson, my green screen effect. But the Browns, I mean, I don't know. If Deshaun Watson's playing for them the entire year, I'm going to have them probably lower than everyone else. I don't really believe in it. I believe in Stefanski. I believe in the defense. I believe in just about everything else. If Jameis Winston cracks this lineup, somehow I think they're going to be a better team for it. But the Cleveland Browns, what do you make for 2024?
Well, you just touched on it. And I was going to say I like the fact that they brought in Jameis Winston, and Stefanski does have another option. Now, what is very much overlooked for Deshaun Watson is he actually was starting to play better as the season went on. A lot of people forget how long of a hiatus he really had going into last season. And on top of that, Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper's connection when Deshaun Watson was healthy was the best in the league. Amari Cooper was on pace to break records with the numbers that he was having with Deshaun Watson. Now, I don't know if why they would want to make it Brandon Ayuk trade, and this has nothing to do with Ayuk's talent. This has everything to do with if you have to send Amari Cooper back the other way, you're now paying a more expensive wide receiver. I understand in this instance you're thinking that Ayuk is the better player, but you're paying $12 million more now after restructuring Cooper's contract and converting the entire salary to signing bonus. But you also just traded for Jerry Jeudy and extended him.
Are you going
to made him a very high-paid wide receiver. So you're going to go trade Amari Cooper to get Brandon Ayuk and extend him? At what point does the money run out? Right? Like, it feels like the Browns just give money out to everybody.
They're like the Saints. Just keep kicking that can down the road, and you'll never have to pick it up.
It's just not a smart move for them, especially because, you know what? At the end of the day, I don't think swapping out one of their wide receivers for Brandon Ayuk is going to push the needle. They have a great defense. They have talent on offense. They do have players. You know, you have Njoku at tight end still. I like, honestly, all four running backs that they have in the room with Donta Foreman and Pierre Strong Jr. as well. Obviously, behind Amari Cooper, there's a bit to be desired at the wide receiver position. I think Jerry Jeudy, with the benefit of having an Amari Cooper next to him, he's a little bit more commanding than Courtland Sutton is.
Yeah,
I think that's gonna help him out. It should open him up, and who knows, maybe playing with Deshaun Watson, someone who can actually throw the football, that could help. Jerry Jeudy hasn't really had any quality quarterback play in his tenure in Denver. Like you said, spending time in Denver will humble you. And look, he ended up getting paid. The Browns saw something out of him. The only other thing I could think of if they're trying to trade for Brandon Ayuk is that they feel like they made a mistake with Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, Jerry Jeudy was still a former first-round pick, and for good reason. It just the production never came in his career in Denver. And now that I feel like you accidentally called him Jerry Duty, I will be referring to him as such moving forward. I did not miss that.
No, I said Judy. I didn't hear a duty, but that is a good one.
You didn't say it, but it sounded like you were about to, and
I'll
corrected
take
yourself.
credit for it.
I'm giving you credit. Jerry Duty. Cleveland. It's so much better with that nickname on the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, it is good. But
It's all coming.
defensively too for Cleveland,
Oh,
there's
top.
not a hole on this defense. There
Yeah.
just isn't.
I mean, you got
defensive line: Shelby Harris, Dalvin Tomlinson, Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith. Their linebackers in Devin Bush, Jordan Hicks, Jeremiah Wusu-Kawamura. They're good. And then Denzel Ward anchor in the secondary with Juan Thornhill. Greg Newsom solid. Martin Emerson Jr. He's a pretty good corner as well. Delpit's a good safety. They have depth as well. Tons of players. It's going to be a difficult team to beat, especially if Deshaun Watson does take another step this year back to where he was.
Yeah, if the offense picks it up, they will continue to be a team to give you trouble with. But correct me, did I see Zadarius Smith went down with an injury in training camp?
Yeah, he is currently injured. Let's see exactly what the word is on
that. I'm going to talk about Baltimore for a second. They were 13-4 last year. They were the 1 seed. Projected win total down to 11.5 this year. They had some departures on defense. When you bring in Derrick Henry, who just feels like he was made to be a Baltimore Raven, I think
he looks good in that uniform. I can't lie.
Yeah, the connection with him and Lamar in the run game, the emergence of Zay Flowers further in year 2. Mark Andrews will be back healthy. Isaiah Likely still there at tight end. Baltimore's still going to be a tough out as well. It feels like all of these teams have strengths, especially defensively for 3 of them.
Baltimore has the best balance in terms of their backfield with Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, and Keaton Mitchell. If, Keaton Mitchell can stay healthy, which, he should as the third string running back, but you have 3 different types of backs. That is as balanced a backfield and talented a backfield as you're going to have, especially next to Lamar Jackson. And, wide receiver-wise, you have Aguilar, who has continued to step up his career. Zay Flowers, everyone expects him to take another jump. And Isaiah Likely proved to be a weapon with Mark Andrews down. So you have 2 tight ends who are weapons that you can use.
Yeah, you talked earlier about Pittsburgh, Freiermuth and Darnell Washington. Right here in Baltimore, probably a better duo.
I would say definitely a better duo.
Especially with Andrews.
I think the bigger issue with Pittsburgh is Freiermuth's just not going to be used.
Yeah. The Arthur Smith effect.
Yeah, and look, Baltimore has questions defensively. Whenever you lose your coordinator, it's going to be something that they talk about. But we saw Kyle Hamilton grow into an all-pro player last year.
Yep.
And, you have Roquan Smith still anchoring the middle of this defense. There's going to be some questions about the defensive line, but Odafe Owe is an absolute animal. He's probably, going to be what I think the best defensive lineman in this division, not named Myles Garrett. And TJ Watt. I'll get TJ Watt as an edge rusher linebacker, but I think he's right there with them. It's just, for Baltimore, can you get past the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs? Because I believe Baltimore is the best team in this division. It's just they have old ghosts that they need to get rid of and vanquish.
And they'll get their shot very early, the kickoff game this year, right? Baltimore going into Arrowhead. Can they upset the Chiefs on their banner night like Detroit did last year? We'll see. I don't think much more needs to be said about Baltimore. They were the best team in the AFC last year. They certainly project to be up there again. But the Joe Burrow, if he's healthy, I'm putting my bet on him. I'll have the Bengals winning this division. Baltimore close behind them in second. Pittsburgh in third. Cleveland in fourth. Give me your AFC North prediction quick before we move over to the NFC.
You got it. I'm going Baltimore. Then I am going Cleveland. Then the Cincinnati Bengals. And I'm sorry, James. I'm sorry, Mike Tomlin. The Steelers are going to have their first losing season under Mike Tomlin. 7-10.
You heard it here first, ladies and gents.